Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Arba. I am a senior here at VCU. I'm a psychology major and a business minor, and I work at the Money Spot as a money coach.
Hello, my name is Donovan. I'm a sophomore at VCU. I'm currently a business major. I'm majoring in accounting. I may or may not switch that, and I'm also money spot coach.
Hi, I'm Tamika McCoy. I'm one of the panelists. I am the program coordinator for the victim advocacy program at UCS. And part of my responsibilities is advocacy for students who are experiencing domestic violence or have experienced sexual assault, stalking, or harassment. And one of my areas of licensure, or whatever you want to call it, is in domestic violence and relationship violence.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about relationships and finances. I'm going to share my screen and we can get started. Okay. So finances play a really big role in all of our relationships. So it's important to have these conversations, talk about money and feel comfortable talking about money, having these conversations and feeling open. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about stuff to keep in mind, concerning finances in your relationships and how to navigate that. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about money within your relationship. So we're going to be talking about knowing your money personality. So how do you spend money? What works for you? What's kind of your style? We're going to be talking a little bit about cash flow and savings tips. So we want to figure out where our money is going and what we're spending it on, so that we can really narrow down what exactly do we need to save for and how does this connect to our relationships. And we're going to be talking about setting boundaries. This is really important. You want to feel in control, with your money, you want to set those boundaries. And then we're going to be talking about handling conflict. So just understanding that conflict will come up, it's normal, but we're going to be talking about how to navigate that. And then looking out for red flags, and then some resources to close us off. Okay, so what's your money style? There are 6 kinds that we focus on at the Money Spot. So I'm going to read them out to you, and you can just think about how if these apply to you, which one do you feel describes you the best? So with giving, this means that giving to others, giving money to others makes you feel good. So if you really have a passion for helping people and that makes you feel good, or you just lend money to your friends in need, or you help your parents out and that makes you feel good, your style might be giving. Carefree is money isn't really a priority to you. You kind of just let life happen, and that's okay, that's cool. But if you are just kind of going with the flow, that's something to take note of as well. Security, money helps you feel safe, control, and just secure. So I feel that's where a lot of people are, just really heavy on the saving to feel secure, to be able to pay for bills, to be able to just have everything under control. And there's spontaneous. So money encourages you to enjoy the moment. So this could be taking a spontaneous trip, or just going out to eat with your friends one night just because you feel like it. And planning. So money helps you achieve your goals. So if you are a planner, you will really like stick to like your cash flow, make sure you have everything under control, like you have set goals for what you're planning. And then there's status. So money helps you present a positive image. So I want you guys to take a little bit of time to think about what your money style is. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can leave it in the chat. I know personally, like for me, I like my money style is security. I just really want to be able to afford everything that I like focus on like my needs and then like my wants. So that to me gives me like a sense of security. And I see in the chat, Barbara said security. Yeah. Yeah, so just think about it. It's really important just to know like where you are with your money like style. And I see in the chat, security with a bit of spontaneous. I like that. Okay, so we can move on. So these are just some questions to consider since we talked about like our money style, like our money habitudes. Now we can kind of use that knowledge to answer these questions. So just take a little bit of time to reflect on these. So like, what is your style with money? So that's kind of just what we talked about, those 6 kind of like styles. So thinking about like which one you feel like fits you best. And then what does my spending and saving say about my values? So if you are, I'll take like myself, for example, my money style is security. So what does my spending and saving say about my values? It's really, I like really value like being like secure. So like that kind of makes sense with like my money style. So I spend in a way that like I really track like my spending and my expenses, and I have like a clear goal of what I'm saving for. That way I can put money towards my goals and still like have money set aside for like things I want to do, but I'll still like feel really secure. So what is your comfort level talking about finances? I'll use myself again as an example. I am very comfortable talking about finances. I feel like it plays a really important role, especially like in your relationship, but like in your personal life too. Just being open about it. You don't have to like tell everyone like every single detail, but just like talking about money and like its importance to you and your relationships is really important. How has my identity or upbringing impacted my approach to finances? So just thinking about this question for you, like what were you taught like as a child, like related to money? Like what were your views on money, or like what were your parents' views on money that kind of like influenced your views now? And then how might my roommate, partner, friend approach money differently? So like these questions, especially the last one, is just getting you to think about like how not everyone is going to have the same style, like the same like money style that you have, but just like finding ways to navigate that and kind of like value like everyone's style without kind of like losing like without kind of like losing sight of like what your like money style is. So those are just some questions to keep in mind. You can reflect on those. And I think it's a really good way to like get the conversation going. When you know like this information about yourself, like what you're comfortable with, what your style is, like how you spend, it'll be like a lot like easier to like take that knowledge towards like your relationships.
Okay, so at the money spot, we use cash flow planning. Cash flow is the calculated, is your income, is calculated by your income minus your expenses. Your income is all the different types of ways you can make your money, whether it's through a job, side hustle, your parents helping you out, or whatever, or however you're getting your money is all your like total money that you earned, and then decreased by your expenses. So you have 2 different types of expenses. Your first one being fixed expenses. These expenses are things that don't typically change monthly, and they're like the same amount every time. So like a good example of that would be like your rent or subscriptions to like Hulu, Netflix, things that have like a set price and aren't going to change no matter like what you do. So it's hard to like decrease these types of expenses because they're probably things that you probably need or like really good ones that you might have to like make sure you're like living life the way you want to. But the other expenses that are variable expenses, these expenses change based on how often you use them or what you use them on. So a good thing is like gas or like a traveling expense. So if you're like traveling more often this month because it's summer or less often because it's winter, that'll be a variable expense because it's changing based on how often you use it. Another one would be like hanging out with friends, right? So you go to different spots, like more places are more expensive than others, or you go out off more often on in the summer than the winter, or however it like you guys work it. These type of things are already changed. So in order to like calculate your cash flow, you would add up all the income you have and decrease it by both of these expenses, and that outcome would be your cash flow. If it's a positive number, that means you're keeping in, saving some of the money that you earned. If it's a negative number, that means you spent more than you earned in that time period. So in order to like increase your cash flow or make sure you're always on the positive side, you want to start either to increase more of your income or decrease some of your variable expenses, things that aren't really like needs, like a groceries would be another variable expense, but something like that is something you like need. So you probably want to go more towards something like, oh, maybe I'll go out less this month because I need to start saving in this area, or I won't travel as much, or find like an alternative instead of using a car for like traveling expense. So you can save some gas money, or and something in a field that where you can like save money and where it doesn't like cost you like your living lifestyle more in a way. So this is where you want to save where you can. So again, at the money spot, we like to use the 30, 50, 20 or 50, 30, 20 rule. And this basically is just 50% of the income is towards your needs. So food, rent, like bills, like your utilities or things like that, where you need like to those things you can't like afford to like not pay. Like you need to, that money has to go to that. 30% on your wants. So you're not always just like, oh, I'm only spending money on rent and I have to save the rest. So you want to have that little bit amount so you can like get the things you want. So you don't have to like, you don't like feel bad about your money situation or feel like you're not like spending anything on anything you want in life. You're just always, it's always going towards something you need. So we give you like that 30%. So you have like that feeling. So you're like, oh, okay, at least I can spend a little bit on this or save it towards something like more meaningful. And then this 20%, you should go straight to your savings. And at first sight, it seems like a lot, like 20% of your paycheck might seem like a good chunk of it, but it's so like helpful over time. Like, especially like COVID is like a perfect example of that because a lot of people didn't have the money they needed to have saved up in order to like maintain their lifestyle. And so since they didn't have the money saved up, they had to like drastically change how they like acted throughout the entire COVID. And some people even like lost their jobs and it's just a whole mess. So you want to have that money saved up so you're able to like recover from those things like COVID that you aren't expecting or anything that you might need to save up for over time. You have that 20% you've been saving over time. So you don't have to like work extra or work all these hours in like a crunch time, like in and out of work and when you need something or need that money. So you always want to have that 20% saved up. And following this basically will just help you maintain that lifestyle of like being financially fit. Okay, so communication is very important when it comes to money. Like I know it's like a very sensitive topic to some people. Like some people don't like want people knowing like where they're at money wise, but you should probably have like at least one person or like family member, friend, someone like you can trust, like how you can trust like telling them so like you don't feel vulnerable to them, but you like feel comfortable talking to them about your money. So communication is very important to make sure like because especially you're in college, you're a college student, you don't have time to be working like a full-time job or making the money you might like want to be making ideally. So you want to be able to communicate to those people just to make sure that you're doing okay and that you're like comfortable where you are money wise. because like there's plenty of things that can happen in college, like something happened in the, like with your family, your car broke down, like things that aren't expected. But if you like communicate that, you might be able to get like some leniency with that person, or they'll be able to help you um just go through the process better. You don't like, you're not stressed about how you are handling your money because you didn't expect this, you don't know what to do, and you're in whatever like problem you're in, and all those things piled up is just like not very it's like it's not very ideal. You don't want to be in that position, so you want to be able to communicate, so you know like where you're at, if you need to like start saving more, like 'cause maybe like you might be having things where like you don't know you're spending this much money, but maybe if you like talked about it with someone, they can like tell you like, hey, like you've been spending a lot of money here, if you started saving this money up a little bit, like not all of it, but just like a little bit, it will stack over time and you'll be able to feel like more comfortable with your money and live like life less stressful. A big thing when it comes to money, especially when it comes to relationships, is setting boundaries. Um, you want to make sure like if there's like no gender roles, like you don't like you should have like equal expectations within each other. Like you want to make sure that like, oh, just because he's a guy and you're a girl, like you want to make sure the money's equal, so no one's like feeling like used or anything in that sense. It's an important thing, especially when it comes to money, because you don't want to like have a like a lingering problem with your partner because of a money situation that you could have just like set boundaries over. So yeah, being in a relationship doesn't mean everything will be 50-50. You want to make sure it is like how it like works for you. So maybe like um your partner makes more money than you. So you don't want to like it being 50-50 will make it a struggle for you. You want to like find that like you want to like compromise and find that middle ground where it's comfortable for both you guys to pitch in however much you can pitch in and still live life comfortably. Like you want to be able to respect that boundary because you know that you might make more than them or they might make less than you. So you don't want to make them uncomfortably money wise trying to like split it 50-50 when it could like benefit both of you by it being like 60-40 if he makes or she makes more money than you. Yeah. And another thing is, so conflict is very normal when it comes to relationships. So you want to be able to communicate that. Like, don't make it more than what it is. Like, you're not everyone's going to have the same mindset on things or view money differently. Like Ari was saying earlier, like people have different money personalities, and that is completely normal. So conflict is going to be completely normal when discussing these types of boundaries. So you want to be able to like understand where they're coming from, or maybe you might understand like, oh, in the past they haven't had like the like best life, so like them feeling secure about their money is important to them. So you want to be able to understand these types of things and respond accordingly, so you don't like lash out on them when they're just trying to like say how they feel about their money and like compromise with you. So you also want to make sure you have these like conversation starters where you like agree on things beforehand. So it's like not like coming out the blue, and you want to make sure like you're comfortably like, okay, like, oh, we talked about this before. So it's like more comfortable when it like start when you have like the actual conversation. So this can like apply to anything as to, like how much you spend on each other's gifts. Like that's a big thing. Like some people are like, oh, how much did you spend on that? So like they know like you don't feel uncomfortable spending that money like back on them if you were planning on doing that. Or you know you don't have the money to spend how much as they did, so you don't want them to get anything too expensive because you won't be able to afford it when it comes back to their birthday or something like that. This could also be like within your roommates too. So like for me, for my roommates, like for like the furniture in the house, like downstairs, we would split it 3 ways because we would all be using it. Not like one person was using it, so one person shouldn't buy it. So that could be like another way you can have like a conversation starter where you might want to like discuss these things and make sure like you guys aren't like making anyone uncomfortable because you might not know their money situation. So you want to make sure you do know their money situation and talk about these things. So to like avoid those problems and issues.
All right, so greetings everyone. And so part of my responsibility as an advocate is to work with students who are in unhealthy relationships or relationships that have become violent. Now, a lot of times what people don't recognize is that one of the leading causes for divorces actually is money. So money has to be a place of agreement in any relationship, especially if you're going to be sharing any financial responsibilities, or if you're going to be in a dating situation, especially if you are going to be serious with that person. And so there are just some things you just want to watch out for. So say, for example, if a person is in a relationship and they decide to be exclusive and finances come up and someone says, well, it's easy if we just share our bank info and credit card. All right, now that's good. That's a tricky situation because for some people it may be a red flag. For some people it may not be a red flag, but you have to be careful about that because number one, if their style is different from yours, so if yours is security and you save and you watch what you spend, but they're the type of person that to put it in layman's term, they get paid on the first and broke by the fifth. That may not be somebody that you want to share your credit card information with or your bank information. So the key thing is to watch before you even get that serious. You need to look at how they spend their money because if you start combining those finances and things of that nature, there's going to be some friction or some arguments about that if you have two different styles. Or let's just say both of you are spenders and you end up in the negative or you end up in the red with your bank accounts. Now you got two people with one account. And so now the money that you ended up negative and they ended up negative now is a one big negative account. So you have to be mindful and watchful about that. If a person pressures you to spend more than the set budget. So if there's an agreement, and one thing about being in a relationship and when it comes to money, you have to be in agreement. There has to be agreement about everything when it comes to money, because the moment you're not in agreement and someone violates that agreement, now you're getting into areas of arguments. You get in the area of the opposite of agreement, which is disagreement. So if there's a set limit or a set budget or what have you, and this partner is pressuring you to spend more than the set budget. And of course, this is fluid and situational all at the same time because it may be a need, okay? There may be a need. We need something in the apartment or we need something in the house. And yeah, this is out of budget. However, we need this, or, and it could be anything from, okay, we may have there may be a need for, let's just say we got an infestation of bugs. There are a lot of bugs, or I'm seeing a lot of spiders. I know this is out of our budget, but we need to spend an extra $100 to get an exterminator. That's different. But if someone's constantly pressuring you to spend outside the set budget for things that you all have decided are frivolous or things that really are not necessary, that's a red flag. If a partner pays for everything, but also makes the other person feel guilty. So at the time, I'm okay with paying for everything. But then when it's convenient for me, I make you feel guilty about it. Or I'm causing you some type of emotional distress because I'm lording over you that I make more money than you. You're broke. You don't have no money. My money goes further than yours. I'm carrying this relationship, especially if they're doing it to be facetious or when it's convenient for them in an argument. That is a red flag. Can we go to the next one? Whoever's okay. All right, then question about all of your purchases. Now, this can be a part of unhealthy relationship period as it pertains to manipulation and control, because in relationships where manipulation and control are going on, not only are they questioning you about your whereabouts, they're questioning you about your spending. There are some people who share bank accounts. Some people share information to the point where they can see what each other's doing in the bank account because they are in a relationship where they share that. And so, but what becomes a red flag if I go to the grocery store, if I go to Marshall's or Ross or whatever, and it's like, well, why'd you spend $9? Yeah, you spent $9 yesterday. Why are you spending $5 today at Wawa? And I love Wawa. So you try to keep me from going to Wawa, we got a problem. So we have to be mindful of that when somebody's questioning like all of your purchases. Now, if you're going out and we have a set budget and you go out and spend $300, and I'm like, yeah, I may question you about that, but question about every purchase, that is a huge red flag. or a partner keeps or spends most of the money themselves without considering the other person. So in this particular portion, what I'm talking about is those who have maybe combined their resources. And so they don't consider the other person, or it may not be, let's just say you're in a relationship with someone that you haven't combined your resources, but let's just say you kind of know when the other person gets paid or whatever. And so by the time it's time to go do something that maybe you have to put your finances together for, or maybe it's date night or whatever, but what you're noticing is that this person completely doesn't have any money after they get paid, and you're having to put gas in their car, you're having to do this, you're having to do this, but they make just as much, or they work as well, and they're not considering that when they fall short, you have to pick up the pieces. So if we're going out for drinks, so we're going to the movies, I have to pay all the time. Now this may work different for married couples, because using myself as an example, my husband and I are married. And in our house, and see, every house is different, every relationship is different. There's no cookie cutter relationship. This goes back to what I'm saying about agreement. When you come into agreement about something, everybody sticks to that agreement. So in our house, our agreement is we're one, we share everything. I make money, he makes money, it goes into one account. However, if we have money in the account and we're paying mortgage and doing all that, but I'm going out as soon as everything is paid or before it's paid, and I'm spending all of the money, I broke the agreement, right? Because I'm not being considerate of my husband. So if he's going to get a pack of gum and it's negative $5 in the bank, that's a problem. And that's also a red flag. And that red flag is what I like to call irresponsibility. So you have to be mindful and watchful of that. And so when you're in that getting to know you stage, because I know it's very euphoric when you get to know someone and everything is so beautiful, you see flowers growing in the snow. Watch their spending. Watch how they're spending. I mean, just in conversation. Yeah, I just got paid on the 5th and it's the 9th and they don't have any money. That's a red flag. Those are things you need to pay attention to and not ignore because they're cute, right? You need to make sure that you're paying attention to red flags. Or a manipulation. So when one partner manipulates the other out of money. Some people use sob stories. Some people lie. Lying is a part of manipulation, and people will, there are times when people are in relationships, they'll manipulate the other's emotion to get money out of them, either because they don't want to spend their own money, or this is the type of person that they are, and this is what they do to get what they want. So you have to be mindful when a person is being manipulative as it pertains to money, because it's a red flag. Is there another one? I think there may be. So here are some resources, and now these are as they pertain to you. Okay, so I am with University Counseling. I am the Victim Advocate Coordinator. Now, you don't necessarily have to be a victim of sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, or harassment to reach out to me, to email me, or to call and make an appointment. I have students who call and say, hey, you know what, Ms. Tamika, can you sit down with me? And I just want to evaluate my relationship. I just want to make sure that this is not an unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy situation that I'm putting myself in because I'm trying to get serious with this person. Or I've had people come in and say, well, I'm serious with this person, but here's what I'm noticing. Can we look at it? And I will sit down with you and help you evaluate your relationship, and everything that you tell me is confidential, meaning that I'm a confidential employee. I'm not allowed to share your information with anyone else. And so you can come to me for that type of consult. However, if you or someone you know is experiencing sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, or harassment, please reach out to me so that we can get an appointment and I can definitely support you and get you the help you need. Under the Title 24/7 resources, these are resources for people who have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, or intimate partner violence. So these are just some resources. And of course, you all have the Money Spot as well. And that is your resource for financial health, which I think is a great program, because if we had this when I was in school, back in the day, I'm not going to tell y'all how old I am. Let's just say probably before you were born, your parents were probably in middle school at that time, but that's neither here nor there. I would have loved that, because I wouldn't have made so many financial mistakes that I made in my early 20s had I had this education. And the best thing that you all can do for yourselves with regards to money, you need to make sure that you keep a good credit score. You need to make sure that you are saving. I think Mr. White talked about saving. Start your savings now. Even if you don't have the capacity to put up 20%, you'd be amazing what $10 a month would do if you don't touch it. So these are just some things, and continue to use the money spot to reach out to those folks for that financial assistance. So I hope something was said that was helpful for you, and I appreciate you all's time today.
Thank you, guys. Does anyone have any questions? I'll stop sharing.
Also, if you wanted to guys make an appointment, you could also make an appointment through Navigate and sign up and make an appointment through that too, if you wanted to.
Yeah, we at the Money Spot offer like services on paying down debt, affording college. If you want to like start making a cash flow plan and start managing that, we can help you with that, as well as planning out like your savings and how to get there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys.